Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, greetings. Welcome back. This one slipped by me, and I received a news alert about 3 days ago. Um, and I could have sworn it said something about this woman being sentenced, but I can't find any reference. But I want to go over it because it's within 50 miles of where I'm located in the Pacific Northwest. And, the Pacific Northwest already has a notoriety for being a cesspool of bad decisions after another. I mean, look at Oregon. They want to put a tax on your vehicle, 4% tax on your tires. They want to put a meter on your water well, your private water well. They want to do reparations. They want to seize weapons and, the Second Amendment weapons and ammunition. They keep trying to revitalize what was called Ballot Measure 114, which was a massive restriction of rights. There is a $9 bike tax they want to put on there, so not even the greeny bike peddlers are going to be safe. But if you look around in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of the bike peddlers nowadays are drug addicts because they've had their vehicles, they've sold them for dope, and then they have to get a bicycle to get around. So take it as you will. I mean, obviously, a 15-year-old, 12-year-old child isn't one of those, but it's going to impact everybody. There's more. I printed it out for a friend of mine because he wasn't convinced. He was just thinking of the gas taxes going on in Oregon, and that's just Oregon. Washington is seeking to transition kids still. They put it up just earlier in the month of April 2025, as well as you have Pierce County Sheriff testifying in Congress earlier in April about the state attorney general suing him for cooperating with federal ICE agents. Then you have the Democrat led Washington legislature passing this massive tax bill in both houses. And now, you know, people are like, well, let's see if Bob Ferguson is actually going to hold to his campaign promise of, no tax increases. So if you followed the Pacific Northwest, you know that it's in a stranglehold by the leftists, the activists. Vancouver mom charged with fentanyl overdose death of her toddler daughter. This is September of 2024. Now, if you're not aware, Vancouver is on the Washington side of the Columbia River, but it is in essence a suburb of Portland. So Catherine Marie Richards is in Clark County Jail, and Clark County is the dominant county of the Vancouver area. In fact, as a point of trivia, it was a man who posted on Facebook about 10 years ago who wasn't the father, who was never married, had only gone on a couple dates with a woman who was a single mother, who was begging and pleading for help because he was being ordered to pay child support. Again, he wasn't the father. He never adopted the child. He was never married to the mother. He had only gone on a couple dates with a woman. And a Clark County judge said, too bad, so sad, you're paying child support. That's what got my attention and got me to start paying attention to the evils of this nonsense going on. 38-year-old Vancouver, she's not a mom. She's a birth giver. She's a criminal. Arrested and charged this week with first degree manslaughter. of her 21-month-old daughter after months-long investigation found the girl died of fentanyl overdose earlier this year. Um, I don't know if this is still true. I Everybody calls Vancouver Vantucky. You know, they joke about it being rural, backwater, redneck even. There was a point in time where Vancouver was considered conservative. I don't think that's the case any longer. You may have pockets of it. A lot of people from Portland, they leave Portland, they go to Vancouver, but they also bring their politics with them. And as a result, you get judges that can't take a, you get prosecutors who can't prosecute a case. You get judges who can't judge, officiate, a hearing. Uh, as we get into this, you're going to be like, okay, first degree manslaughter. That's all you can get on this woman. That's insane. This is murder. All right, so she's on $500,000 bail. She had reported found the toddler unresponsive on March 26th, so just over a year ago. 13 months ago, as of recording this. And she lied to the first responders that drugs had nothing to do with her being unresponsive. And I've made critiques on what everybody is saying about the police and back the blue and bad apples and whatnot. And this is also a critique on them that they can't even go into a crime scene, and properly assess it and document it well enough. I've, the crime scene classes that I've participated in, just to give you an idea, the moment I find it, I'm going to put it on a video. Blood, blood spatter. There's a portion of our training that was blood spatter. I mapped by hand all of the blood spatter of our crime scene, documenting the direction of the blood splatter, its location, and relative, to each other blood splatter stain, as well as where the vacuum. The vacuum is usually the victim that blocked the splatter, or objects that block it, and so forth. Anyway, everybody in my class thought it was digitally done. It was a picture. That is how detailed it was. I was very pleased with my class's applause on that. A few weeks later, toxicology tests came back positive for fentanyl and naloxone, the medication commonly known as Narcan, and that is used to try to reverse drug overdose. So she's tampering. She knew right away that her child had overdosed to the drugs that she had available, and she tried to revive her with Narcan. I've seen it done. I knew an individual about 5.5, 6 years ago. I had seen him at the grocery store with this woman, and about 30 minutes later, this woman came knocking on the door of the house I had gone to, and stating that this individual was unresponsive. I called first responders, and they showed up. They gave him Narcan. And sure enough, because I dragged his body out of the car and he was already getting cold, and I've dealt with dead bodies to know that, you know, uh, it was too soon for him to be dead, but his body temperature was severe. It wasn't the 98.6. We'll leave it at that. And he was completely unresponsive. Sometimes you can slap their face and get them to become responsive. Other times you can't. Uh, but yeah, Narcan is a very odd thing. And I do agree with the people that say, how come we're giving Narcan away for free when we have people that have these other things, whether it's diabetes or even allergies to bee venom. Uh, there's a meme that goes around saying, why aren't these medications free if Narcan is free? Richards also told police she had never done fentanyl before her daughter died, though she admitted to using it after the girl's death, according to a probable cause affidavit filed by the prosecution. Yeah, never believe a tweaker. There's the old joke about the heroin addict will just steal from you. The meth addict will steal from you, but spend all day helping you look for what was stolen. And this, I hadn't read this far into it, but I had a suspicion, and I hate that this is the level of incompetence that women exhibit in professional fields, that whether it's the pilot refusing to take direction of the pilot in command, thus becoming a mass murderer and ending the lives of those 70 airline passengers over DC 2 months ago, or in this case, the senior deputy prosecutor, Laurel Smith, a woman, and Judge Suzan Clark, a woman. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can read it, but what it says is not relevant. It's the fact that we have what's called a gynocacistocracy. And a cacistocracy is the rule, the government rule of the most incompetent. Think back to high school. Think of the stupidest individual, whether a student, teacher, whatever, it doesn't matter. But just think about how incompetent they were to function, then amplify that individual by 1,000. That's what we have, is the most incompetent women being promoted into these spaces of, because of affirmative action until it was ruled unconstitutional 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And since then, the DEI. But, you know, I will say that they made the right push, but, you know, because of her being suicidal, we need to keep her locked up because she's suicidal. And then it goes on to state that she was willing to flee the state. Um, the rest comes at a time. Well, okay, they go into the detail that Portland just lets this stuff go on like crazy. There is plenty of accounts, whether it's Brandon Farley or Honey Badger Mom, that put out pictures of, the just the decay in downtown Portland and surrounding. It's I whenever I drive through Portland, I'm I am caught off guard by the decay. So they fluff it with all the local nonsense to let you know it's not an isolated thing, therefore to feel bad for the mother. It's a linguistic arts technique. They go on to detail how she called 911 in the evening. Police said the house was cluttered and unkempt. Garbage, moldy food, limited free space on the floors, drug paraphernalia, clear crystal rock of methamphetamine on a mirror in the basement where a friend was staying. Yeah, I mean, these are all obvious red flags as to something going on. You can usually tell somebody that's a tweaker. Just I don't want to get into it because I'm already going long on this. I was just shocked that I hadn't heard about this story. Um, one thing that I'm aware of is that they used to do toxicology in house in Seattle at the not Capitol Hill. What's the other one that's a little bit to the east? Um, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's one of the it's one of the Swedish hospitals up there. LabCorp has their lab. They used to do it in house up there, and LabCorp is based out of North Carolina. Now all the toxicology reports or tests are sent from the Boeing field just off of I-5 in King County, and they're flown out to North Carolina, and then they're done. The toxicology is done there in North Carolina, so they don't even do it local anymore. It doesn't mean that one of the other, Cellnetics is very local, if I remember correctly. Anyway, it goes on, about how at the beginning of this report, as it stated, that she doesn't say anything about using Narcan. Then it goes on to here to say that she had done 2 doses of Narcan. Um, yeah. And you can pause this and read through it. It essentially just goes through her statements and the in-house soap opera drama. But bottom line, in a tweaker house, the only thing that matters is the drug. But it does state that there's been uses of Narcan in the past, that apparently the drugs were kept in a box. That no, I have no doubt that they were probably kept in a box and kept in a cubby and kept in a pocket and kept in a, on and on and on. The husband filed for divorce. So this was September, and it says that he filed in July, and that her court date was 6 months ago. But I couldn't find anything about it, whether she did a plea or if she had been sentenced. But the news alert, maybe that's what it was just saying that it had started. I was distracted and saw it and immediately just tried to type in what I could before it disappeared. And it just says here from the Brave AI, Katherine Marie Richards, Vancouver woman who has been charged with first-degree manslaughter after her 21-month-old daughter died of fentanyl overdose in March. Okay, so that's why he filed in July. Okay, yeah, and it makes sense. Um, I don't know if the statistics are still the same, but any relationship, marital relationship that produces a child, if there's a death of a child, 70% of them get divorced. And quite honestly, in a when somebody's hiding an addiction that then results in injury or death to a child, that's just a given. Loss of a child is, you're never the same after that. She's pleading not guilty, so we'll see. I'll try to keep up with this if I can find more information. Maybe if you know more information, you can let me know in the comments. I would like to know what's going on when it's local. And again, I want to emphasize that just because they're a woman doesn't mean they're competent. And women need to start recognizing this, that if they want to be seen as the professionals that they want to be seen as, they cannot keep putting incompetence, such as the Judge Suzan Clark, or the, what was the woman's name? The prosecutor, Laurel Smith. And it goes back to the DEI womanist affirmative action pilot that became a mass murderer, ending all those passengers on that airliner a couple months ago. And you see it all over the place. You see it with bleach blonde Bimbo Bondi, the Attorney General. Just listen to the way she speaks. She speaks as if she's in kindergarten, and I have the things on my desk, and we're going to release them. When women speak in that manner, it's because they're in way over their head. And it's not just women. Anybody who speaks in that manner is doing so because they lack the ability to think in real time and to conversate, share information of substance on a pure level. And that's what's sinking what's going on. That's why you have far too many men that are willing to get on their knees and provide service, and you have far too many women having their egos inflated into being just accepted, even though they don't have the grades nor the IQ to be in these fields. All right. If you know any more about this story, let me know in the comments. If not, I will keep my eyes open for more information.